I am here at the most single important event of the secular Jewish calendar, the International March of the Living, where a few hours ago here in Poland, some 8,000 Jews, Christians, and others assembled here to mourn, but more importantly, to warn.
And now, The Edwin Black Show. Sponsored by the Books of Edwin Black, available on Amazon and at booksellers worldwide. And now, here's Edwin.
Hello, I'm Edwin Black, investigative journalist, historian, and human rights author of 235 editions in 40 languages in 190 countries worldwide, including IBM and the Holocaust, War Against the Weak, and the Farhud, as well as many other books. This is a show for opinion makers and decision makers, not mass clicks. So if you think our show's content is meaningful, spread the word throughout your most informed networks. Subscribe for free alerts at theedwinblackshow.com. And if you want to support our work, we need your assistance. Please visit theedwinblackshow.com/support. Please visit theedwinblackshow/support. Your help, big or small, assures our complete and utter intellectual and uncensored journalistic independence. Today's episode is made possible and sponsored without any preconditions, requests, or stipulations by the March of the Living in association with Stand With Us, the Jewish community of Eastern Ohio, Christian community of Eastern Ohio, the wonderful Stram family. The ethics bestseller, Values That Shape the World, Save the West, and to two wonderful people in Bethesda, Maryland. If you would like to honor someone with a sponsorship, contact us. That said, remember, I only speak for myself and for history, and the same goes for my guests. Today, we welcome viewers from across America, including our 4 watch parties in the Villages, Newton, Mass., Chicago, and Tampa Bay, thanks to Harvey. Overseas, I see viewers logged on from most of our usuals: Australia, New Zealand, Great Britain, Canada, Germany, of course, Holland, Sweden, France. I see Italy, Spain, Poland, of course, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, and Israel, of course, plus other countries. If you have a question, place one short sentence in Zoom's QA feature. The Edwin Black Show, along with our YouTube site, is global and fast growing, enjoying many scores of thousands of views. We speak frankly and without tremor to a fragmented world, seeking better understanding of our tormented past, our present, very, very tense, and a turbulent future, still uncertain. By the way, stay tuned for my special word of wisdom at the very end of the show, just before I sign off. Let's get to it. I ask, where are you? Where are you? You're in Los Angeles right now. You're in Chicago, London, Sydney, or any city, any place where you see the beginnings of the most outrageous anti-Semitism in your lifetime. You see the street protests against the Jews, the campus sieges where Jews cannot walk, the beatdowns, the arson attacks against Jewish buildings. Where are you? You're at the beginning. Where am I? I'm at the end. I'm at a beautiful nature park in Tarnow, Poland, as I was yesterday, where the tall trees and clustered gentle mounds form a serene woodland palette made effervescent by chirping birds and splashes of flowers, perhaps a picnic. But is this God's little acre, or is this Satan's death mat? Because right here, right beneath my feet, just a few steps from the road, 10,000 Jews from the town of Tarnow were marched, the mothers with their babies, the old men, the youngsters, all forced to remove their clothing and then maniacally shot in the head by Nazi Einsatzgruppen, helped by numerous supportive local Polish militia, and their corpses were then packed tightly like sardines into a mass grave. Thousand after thousand, hour after hour, Where are you? You are at the beginning, but where am I? I'm at the March of the Living. I'm at Auschwitz. More than 1 million of the Holocaust, 6 million died. I'm at a place where Jews were shipped by the vast German train lines, all managed with deadly precision by America's corporate giant, IBM, shipped from across Europe to be murdered in as cruel and industrially efficient a means as possible, where spot decisions were made every second of every day, whether to murder by gas chamber, hanging, bullet in the head, or debilitating labor. I'm at Auschwitz, where the Jews were violated even in death, where the ghastly corpses pulled from the gas chambers were rapidly shaved for all their hair, which was then shipped by the ton, repeat, by the ton, to textile manufacturers across Germany so they could be woven into blankets and naval socks, where the gold teeth of contorted jaws were pulled, an estimated 6,000 ghoulish kilograms of gold teeth from Auschwitz alone to be sent to smelters, to be boiled down into gold bars, then sent to Swiss banks such as UBS. Auschwitz, a center of mass murder and a center of mass profit for its corporate sponsors such as IBM, Ford, General Motors, the Carnegie Institution, and the Rockefeller Foundation, as well as so many more. Where are you, my listeners? You are home at the noisy beginning of the anti-Semitic campaigns. I am here at the blood-curdling end of the anti-Semitic campaigns. I'm in Auschwitz. I'm here at the most single important event of the secular Jewish calendar, the International March of the Living, where a few hours ago here in Poland, some 8,000 Jews, Christians, and others assembled here to mourn, but more importantly, to warn ourselves and the world that this is the hateful endgame we are now facing. 8,000 came from every corner of the globe: community groups, synagogues, churches, police associations, government officials, UN representatives, and 80 of the last men and women who survived the camps, the killing squads, the death marches, the inhumanity, and the Zyklon B in gas chambers. And yes, that was also a source of income. They marched the 3 kilometers from Auschwitz I to Auschwitz II Birkenau, where the Germans arrayed the gas chambers to kill, crematoria to eliminate the evidence, and kept some labor units to make it happen, until even those laborers were also murdered. They were also in line. Some of the marchers limped. Some were pushed in wheelchairs. I saw a muscular disabled person walking every step, helped by 2 women, teenagers singing songs of defiance, Israeli soldiers in full uniform, showing what the new Jewish person is, senior citizens who left their comfort zones in Montreal, Miami, and Manchester, people with nothing walking stride against stride with people of means. My wife and I walked the full 3 kilometers. This ingathering of the decent, they have assembled not only to remember the evil back then, but to dismember the evil coming our way once again. Not a person here, nor any person in Jewish leadership or an ordinary informed place, does not believe that we are at the precipice. A second Holocaust is brewing. The Nazi flags are flying over highways in Sweden. In Canada, supporters of Hamas's Nazis are promising to do it again and again, and punctuating their warnings with fire bombs against the synagogue doors. Everywhere, Jews are being told to leave the campus, leave the neighborhood, leave the country, and leave our homeland of 3,000 years. Their weapons start with falsehoods and fictions and then escalate to firebombs and mob attacks. The Arab Street, known to every Mideast dictator, has now been mobilized in the US, Canada, Australia, and throughout Europe and elsewhere to push the Jews out, to normalize murder, and then find a new solution, perhaps not unlike the final solution. This time we will fight back with our Israel army and with a defiant Jewish community in the diaspora. We will rise to face our enemies, this time in a nick of time. For the first time in history, for the first time in any land, we have a leader in the United States, President Donald J. Trump, who is doing more than issuing proclamations and press releases. He is actively, hour to hour, day to day, minute to minute, destroying the anti-Semitic machine, as we once did to the Ku Klux Klan, this machine on our campuses and in our communities, and the anti-Semitic fires that have been allowed to burn out of control are now being diminished, are now being fought. Now, Trump must take stiff, stifling measures against the resurgence of anti-Semitism around the world, especially the English-speaking lands of Canada, Australia, Great Britain, Ireland, and South Africa. What you have done, Mr. President, with tariffs and special measures must be implemented against those countries that promote, tolerate, and allow to thrive the oldest of hatreds and deadly missions, anti-Semitism. America may be safe, but the rest of the world is spinning out of control and cries out for intervention. This is my personal message from Auschwitz. We must educate, educate, educate. We must litigate, 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 affiliate, 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 and legislate, legislate, legislate until we do something never before done in history. Defeat the rising tide of poisonous Jew hatred. Here to tell us more is one of the most important women in the Jewish world, one of the most energetic, the woman who single-handedly, along with 1,000 other hands helping her, has put together the International March of the Living, which today, for my thought, the best March of the Living we ever had, even though we sustained a horrible thunderstorm at the end that canceled the ceremony. For me, it was not the ceremony, it was the ingathering of the decent people. They came from everywhere and they came to one place. I give you Phyllis Heideman. Phyllis, take the screen. Tell us what you think. Where are we and where are we going?
We are survivors. Today we are officially survivors. Survivors of the most inclement weather the International March of the Living has experienced in 19 years. We'll have to do some serious thinking, internalizing, and analysis of what in the world happened to us at the end of the most meaningful march. You're absolutely right. We are here in Poland. We are here commemorating and giving due respect to 80 years since the liberation of not just Auschwitz I and Auschwitz II Birkenau, but many, many other concentration and death camps throughout Europe. We are here to thank the military, thank Dwight David Eisenhower and the Allied forces in Europe who brought an end to the pain and suffering of the Jewish people, and an end to World War II. We have with us 80 incredible survivors of the Holocaust, 40 from the state of Israel and 40 from around the globe. We have been today 194 buses, participants from 92 groups, delegations. We are 12 university presidents from the United States. We are 60 United Nations ambassadors. We are 60 law and members of a transnational law enforcement delegation, chiefs of police from around the world. And why do we all come together? We come together to stand against hatred, to stand against the evils of hatred, the evils of anti-Semitism, and the plain, unmitigated disrespect for life that we're living in every country around the globe. It's not just the Jewish people, let's be honest. There are other groups also suffering mercilessly just because of who they are. So we are here today together with thousands of students from countries around the 40 countries around the globe to say enough, enough. We're going to take charge of our life. We're going to remember the past, and we're going to use the past as a teaching lesson in the present to protect a better future. We must respect life. We must respect each other. And if we don't put a unified stop to man's inhumanity to man, to woman, and to child, then we risk facing another total horrific event such as the Holocaust, which took several years to begin, endure, and complete, and take with it 17 million lives, 6 million of them Jewish. We saw today at Auschwitz shoes. We looked through the glass and we saw shoes. They were the shoes of children, of mommies, of grandmas, of aunts and uncles that were stripped from the feet of the people instantaneously upon arrival at Auschwitz. The children, however, let's think about the little children and the little pairs of sandals and Mary Jane's Shabbat shoes that I saw today again. These children arrived at Auschwitz. Their shoes were taken from them, and most of them did not live another day. It's our responsibility to take care of their memory, to honor their legacy, and to just do something about the horrific situation that this world is in today. So, Edwin, first I want to thank you as president of the March. I want to thank you for your kind words. And equally as important, I want to thank you for joining us, for believing in what we do, for standing up on all your programs for all the right causes, and for remembering our past so that we can preserve a better future. Thank you for having me on tonight.
Stirring words, and I felt and saw while I was here everything that you spoke of. Now, I ask you, Phyllis, as you informed us, the Holocaust was a 12-year process. It began on January 30th, 1933, with the ascent of Hitler, and it culminated in the first week of May with the collapse of Nazi Germany. How close do you think we are to repeating that process?
I don't want to be considered a Pollyanna. I don't want to be considered a doomsday woman either. I do see signs of pre-war Germany. I do see signs of days, weeks, months prior to the Holocaust happening today right in front of us in the high schools, on the college campus, in synagogues, in churches, in department stores, on highways, where you and I both have witnessed frightening signs: death to the Jews, death to Israel, death to all Jews, Zionists must die, the burning of books, the banning of books. I think we can attribute it all to the mentality that came with the rise of Adolf Hitler, and that's a mentality of hatred. If you are not me, then I hate you. If you are not me and do not believe exactly like me and do exactly what I say, then away with you. So, yeah, I think that given the power of the word, given the power of, and I don't mean military strength, but the power of strength, when you speak with real authority, the people listen to you, I guess. And I see that what's going on in the Ivy League schools on the campuses is nothing short of a precursor to what definitely could be. I'm close to 78 years old. I'm not ashamed to admit it. And I want you to know that I never in my life thought we would see the environment in which we're living be so dramatic, so familiar to those who lived during the Holocaust as we are today. So there are signs, there are really serious signs. And if we continue to live in a state of denial, I'm really very afraid for society, for the betterment of society, and certainly for the future of the world that our children deserve, that we should be leaving them. And because we want to believe that in our cities, we're fine. We're fine. We live comfortably. We're successful in business. We have friends and we live a normal life, that it's all not going to touch us. I don't believe it for a moment. They don't believe it in Toronto, Canada. I know they don't believe it in London, England. And in either Boca Raton, Florida, or in Bethesda, Maryland, do I believe it either, that yes, it can happen again.
Sobering words indeed. And now I'd like to remind everybody that one man, aided by a million other men and women, saved the world. That person was Dwight D. Eisenhower. And with us on the trip at Auschwitz, on the march, greeting the survivors, receiving an award, was the great grandson of Dwight D. Eisenhower. I speak of Merrill Eisenhower. And he is with us now on the show. I bring in Merrill to give us his impressions and his feelings from the day, being greeted by the women and the men that his great grandfather saved. Take it, Merrill.
First of all, thank you for having me. As always, it's a pleasure to be on the show. And as you know, since we spent so much time together, that I am fully passionate about this issue, something that matters to me greatly. You know, I think you're right whenever you say this might have been the best March of the Living ever to be a part of. Although that might be biased because it's, you know, I was on there. So I, of course, think it was the best. And it was my first time. But what I did see was I saw us, thousands of people walking through the gates of hell and walking through an evil place, one that murdered millions and changed people's lives and for generations. And I saw us all walk together, different colors, races, religions, people, just walking and celebrating the lives and remembering the past of the atrocities that happened. And just right on cue, whenever good things happen, with every step, you're wiping away some of that evil because we're remembering these things. And just right on cue, the heavens opened up, rained on us to wash away even more of that evil. And that is truly how I feel about the reflection of what happened today. An incredible experience. Last time I was at Auschwitz, I walked out with no hope. This time I walked out seeing tens of thousands of people together, walking in rain, laughing, understanding the seriousness, but at the same time, no one's spirits were broken. And everybody that was walking understood why we were there. And just taking that one time, that 1 second, we can't comprehend what all those people went through 80 years ago. But we can have a better idea walking through the cold rain today. And I really, really, really enjoyed my experience in the most humbling way possible, because I think the march is about hope and remembrance. And the day before, when I went through the death camp, that was much more sobering and very sad, of course. And everything Phyllis says, I would like to say that was 100% spot on. But I think that my great-grandfather would be very proud of all of us for taking the time to remembering all those that passed before us. And you're right, there is anti-Semitism on the rise throughout the world, but there's also more racism and more evil and more separation of groups. And we're forgetting the key commonality of what we all have in common. And number one is that we're human beings first. We love each other, treat each other with respect so that we can save the world for the next generation. And if people like us don't do that, then who's going to do it? And we'll find ourselves back at Auschwitz or something like it in not too long.
Merrill, that was very sobering, and I could see the expression on your face as you were hugged by these survivors. And I was personally so satisfied that you were the recipient of all this love and gratitude of your great grandfather. And that's because you exemplify the spirit of your great grandfather, a man who was born and raised a pacifist, but who rose to the occasion to save the world.
I'll tell you one more thing if you allow me. I was adopted by Evie, by the way. She said that she was now my grandmother because my grandmother and grandfathers had passed. So just letting you know, it was pretty special and touching. And being there with those survivors, that was incredible. And being there with the children was just as incredible. I am very optimistic to see what the future has to bring and what we can do together to change the world.
Optimistic now in just a small way because we are coming together in defiance. We are coming together to fight the evil. And now I want to talk about the way we fight this evil, one of the many ways. And here I refer to the most important defense organization for the Jewish people in the United States. I speak of Stand With Us. And here to talk to us is their expert on fighting anti-Semitism. I refer to Matt Lebovic. Matt, take the screen and tell us, is it actually possible to stem the resurgence of violent and threatening anti-Semitism, or is it all just an exercise?
Thank you, Edwin, and thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I feel like I know the other guests. Phyllis's daughter, Ilana, is one of my mentors in Holocaust memory work. And Merrill Eisenhower, of course, I talk about his great-grandfather whenever I teach the Holocaust and his insistence that the German people be brought into the camps and see and photograph what was done in their name. Such a hero for his presidency and for that. I would say, Edwin, I want to say something optimistic. I do think that the tide of hatred can be turned through education, which is the mission of Stand With Us. The schools that I teach at, I go around the United States teaching about the Holocaust. Today I'm in Potomac, Maryland. I taught 2,200 students at an assembly. There is goodwill and interest from the schools. Most of these schools in Middle America know they don't have the resources to teach the Holocaust. They can't go to a museum trip. So they bring me in, they bring my colleagues in, and the teachers and the students are so grateful. I can't tell you. Today I gave this lesson about the Holocaust in historical context. How many teachers and students came up to me saying they didn't know Hitler was inspired by Jim Crow laws. They didn't know, Hitler was inspired by all these other evil things. And to make these connections and see these students go, it's not just about Jewish people. The Nazis had a genocidal worldview. They murdered 100,000 disabled people in gas chambers right before the Holocaust started. You can sort of get students to start to see this intense hate and the way this hate has all these intersections. And I think that is one way for students who aren't Jewish, don't have Jewish friends. I think an important way to show them the totality of the evil that we must prevent from happening again is to show them the other victim groups as well. And of course, the Jews were the primary target. Every single Jew was targeted. But to make people aware of the whole genocidal worldview of the Nazis. And from my experience in 4 years at Stand With Us doing this, that's what really opens up students' eyes to be like, wow, I could be an upstander now. I could do something now against what I see brewing. Or I understand in the Holocaust that some people are alive now only because a righteous person saved them. So I'm a big fan of education. And the last thing I'll say is I teach about the education in Nazi Germany and the poisonous mushroom and how children were heavily indoctrinated from childhood onward into the Hitler Youth. We know that education works because we saw it. We saw them indoctrinate the youth toward the Holocaust. So don't tell me that education can't also work to indoctrinate our youth toward peace and coexistence and respect and not having another Holocaust. So I'm here to speak for education's power, its ability to, God willing, prevent this from ever happening again.
Take to heart everything you said, and I'm so happy that you're making progress. I took a note, and I totally agree, and I will inform our viewers that the very first victims of the Nazi gas chambers were German citizens who were deemed to be mentally defective. The very first ethnic group to be destroyed in Germany were the Afro-Germans. the individuals of African descent who are also with German parentage. Tell me, you know the process starts with hate language, with hate speech. It moves to all the other actions and it ends where I am now. How close are we along this process?
I mean, I think we're painfully close. If you look at some quarters and where people are being attacked and Jews, the slander and the slurs, I think there's way too much of it. But we have, we have mechanisms in place now to fight back and to call people on what they say, and hold them accountable. And it's interesting you mentioned that, Edwin, because I opened my presentation in Namibia, in Africa, and everyone's eyes are wide open. What are you doing in 1904 Namibia? And I tell them this is the first genocide. Germany committed a genocide that they only paid reparations for and admitted to 3 years ago. It was in Namibia. This is a genocidal mentality, a through line into the Holocaust.
That you and others may remember that I did a major series for dozens of Jewish papers on this first Holocaust, the first genocide of the 20th century, where the Germans had a practice run at extermination and exterminated the Herero natives of German Southwest Africa, now known as Namibia. Stick around and we'll talk to you some more soon. And now I want to bring in an esteemed expert who has to confront the whole question of ethics. I speak of Faye Lincoln. She has now witnessed an ever-worsening anti-Semitism as an ethical failure. And based on her ethics platform and her extraordinary best-selling book, Values That Shape the World, I'm going to ask Faye to take the screen and tell us about our ethical lapse.
Well, thank you very much, Edwin, and thank you for the opportunity to be on the show with all these esteemed guests. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be in Poland, in Auschwitz, next month. So hearing of the March of the Living is wonderful. Let me share some memories first. I'm a child of 2 Holocaust survivors. My father was at Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen. My mother remained in Auschwitz the entire time. It's a miracle that I'm even here to celebrate this event. When my mother got off the train at Auschwitz, she was whisked off to Birkenau first as she tried to save a young boy who had lost his parents. There she ran into Dr. Josef Mengele, the angel of death. He allowed her to live because my mother was too young to have a boy his age, but the young boy did not survive. In Auschwitz, a German soldier ordered my mother to shovel dead bodies of her fellow Jews into a mass grave. Picture this. My mother was only 4'9" and told that Nazi German soldier, quote unquote, over my dead body, and walked away. She stood up for what was right. In my later years, this made me wonder, how was it that the Jewish people had such resilience of character that they not only came to a strange land, America or Israel, but they also found success? I believe it was our Judaism, with 3 millennia of shared values and history, that allowed us to survive. First, our strong sense of family and caring for our children ensured our survival as a people after so many had died. The Jewish people were encouraged to have children once again, to rebuild a nation, and to pass along our values. Second, we've been living and studying the rule of law through Torah and Tanakh for centuries. Our ancestors had learned to live with the Jewish law amongst many empires and faiths, flexibly adapting to different cultures and times. Living in America and Israel would be a gift, to live in freedom under democracy. Third, education became a great value for the Jewish people. Universal education developed in Judaism as early as 64 CE, when the high priest of Jerusalem mandated that all young boys, and today, of course, it would have been all girls as well, must attend synagogue schools in every Jewish community in Israel and the diaspora lands. Throughout the ages, rich or poor, children learned Torah and Hebrew to read in the common language and to perform mathematics. Jews were literate for over 15 centuries, while 95% of the people in the Holy Roman Empire were illiterate during medieval times. No wonder education was so important to our parents when they arrived in America and Israel. And last, the rabbis had codified the Tanakh in 200 CE and the Talmud in 500 CE. These sacred Jewish texts connected literate Jews to one another in the diaspora over the centuries and ties American Jews to Israel today. Resilience comes from optimism and realism under hardship, embedded with a strong sense of purpose, to stand for something greater than ourselves. Today, Jews are being threatened with anti-Semitism in America, terrorism in Europe, and annihilation in Israel. Never again can happen only one generation later. But our shared values and history require us to stand up for what's right and to defend ourselves against anti-Semitism and hate at this critical point in history.
What an extraordinary presentation, Faye, and really delivered so much information. Here, I've known you for years and years, and I never knew that your mother was a survivor of Auschwitz. Wow. So,
Well, yeah, thank you.
From your position in Salt Lake City, which I believe is a very, very safe city, a very sedate city, but you have seen your share of anti-Semitic outbursts throughout the campuses there, and indeed in the urban areas. How close along this awful process do you think we are approaching?
Well, again, I look at it from a national perspective, and I see all the signs of the rise in anti-Semitism that we've been seeing in the early history of Nazi Germany. And this should bring fear to us no matter where we live throughout the country. Our university presidents, for example, with all the campus protests that have taken place over the last several years, have been on the rise, and we've only had weak responses from them. They've used free speech as an excuse for people to rise up in anti-Semitism and provide a lot of discrimination against the Jewish students where they no longer feel safe, basically, to go to school. But more importantly, what I'm really concerned about is the very loose associations and organizations that are taking place that are affiliated with Hamas, that are affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood, and are now spreading into college campuses through the Students for Justice for Palestine. So the leaders that essentially have started this organization, which now has 200 affiliations throughout the university campuses across the nation, started other political Islamic organizations as well that are closely aligned with the Hamas movement and the Muslim Brotherhood. And we're seeing their rhetoric for fundamentalist political Islam coming forward. And this should be something that really concerns us and scares us. And we really need to address this. And it's worse in Europe even than here. So I think those are the two concerns: our lack of leadership from university presidents and our check that we need on radical student groups.
Completely with your observations. I'm so happy you shared them with it. And it brings me now to our next guest, Ken Abramowitz. And Ken is the author of The Multi-Front War, which actually dealt with many of the issues that you are speaking of. And I'm going to ask Ken, who has his thumb on the pulse of political activity, whether the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, has the power to succeed in crushing anti-Semitism in America, but also does he have the power to counteract it worldwide, especially in the enlightened English-speaking countries such as Canada, Australia, South Africa, Ireland, and Great Britain. Ken, take the screen.
Okay, great to be with you and everybody here today. Unfortunately, historic day. The answer to your question is yes. President Trump has lots of power And he's using about, according to my financial analysis, 25% of his power right now. He's penalizing universities, which is wonderful. He's supporting Israel, I'd say 90% as much as he could do. And he's hired good people, Leo Terrell and Rabbi Kaplan as his emissaries and opposing anti-Semitism. So far, so good. He's off to a great start and a lot better than all the other presidents put together. Although, I must say, you mentioned General Eisenhower. General Eisenhower did an awful lot to stamp out anti-Semitism by destroying the Nazi death cult. President Trump has much, much more to go. And so I came up with, I think, 8 different suggestions for him. And I hope that these get implemented over the next year or so. But he has the power to do this. Number 1, he's going after universities. How about K through 12? And how about teachers' colleges? The propaganda in those textbooks is terrible. He and his people should be reviewing the propaganda in those textbooks. Number 2, he should set up a government-authorized website, White House website. He should list all the Islamist countries, all the anti-Semitic countries, and all the anti-Christian countries. Bear in mind, anti-Semitism and anti-Christian behavior go hand in hand. Now, having said that, we're going to find out that almost all of the 193 countries are on this newly to be formed website. But still, he should have a website like that. Number 3, he should cut NGO tax-exempt status for NGOs who pretend to be not-for-profit, but they're really political organizations, and in particular anti-Semitic organizations and anti-Christian. Number 4, he should sanction with tariffs or otherwise all enemies of Judeo-Christian culture. It can be done. Number 5, he should discuss with all leaders. He meets with a leader almost every day from another country. He just met with Norway, I saw on TV. And why didn't he bring up the fact that Norway is systemically anti-Semitic, systemically anti-Israel, and is funding a lot of bad guys in Israel? He should have mentioned that. Not that I know that. I'm going to guess that he did. Number 6, the UN is systemically anti-Semitic. Why aren't we doing something about that or reducing our funding of it? Number 7, we have to deport Islamists as fast as humanly possible. And finally for today, this is just 8 suggestions for today. I'll think of some more another day. Has to eliminate foreign financing to our universities from our enemies, in particular Qatar or China, among others. So those are 8 suggestions for him, and I hope those ideas get to him and he implements them over the next year. I think he has the power to do all of those.
Ken, I certainly agree with your observations, and I would just like to add that he's already taken steps as of a few hours ago to compel colleges and institutions of higher education to reveal whenever they get a foreign gift. So it's not just going to be from Qatar, it's also going to be from, as we know, Egypt, China, Iran is funding, even the Palestinian Authority is funding schools. They've been giving funding to Brown University. I also would like to fill in something you didn't mention that I know is in your upcoming book edition, and that is that you have proposed something that I consider incredibly important. You have proposed an affirmative action program to get out the anti-Semitic teachers and the anti-Semitic elements in our education system. In essence, we need to do for the Jews what we have already done for the Black community, the African Americans, by attacking the KKK, by sponging racist ideas and Jim Crow. We need to pull these out in affirmative action. You're doing great work, Ken, and I'd like to ask you, inasmuch as you are watching the political processes, looking at the beginning, where you are, and the end, where I am, how close are we to where we were?
Well, I would say Jews are at existential risk. By the way, Jews have always been at existential risk. So it's actually not new since the Torah was delivered and the rule of law was created that the dictatorships have wanted to kill all the Jews. Now they want to kill all the Christians. It wasn't going on in the beginning when the Roman Empire wanted to kill the Christians, but in modern history, Christians are under massive attack. So, for example, the Prime Minister of England came to the White House a few weeks ago. He publicly announced that I'm going to protect the 10% of the people who are Muslim, and I'm not going to protect the 90% of the people who are Christian or Jewish. Shouldn't President Trump have mentioned that to him, that we do not tolerate anti-Christian, anti-Semitic behavior in our Western countries? I don't know, but I guess it wasn't brought up. So I think it's time now for Christians to understand the existential risk. Canada, same story. The government's viciously anti-Christian, viciously anti-Jew. Shouldn't that issue come up? And so President Trump is, I would say, in the second inning, anti-stopping Jew hatred and Christian hatred to save 2 billion people from existential risk.
Your points are well taken. And now I'd like to go to our last panelist. I'd like to address Dr. Bruce Blank, and not far from Wheeling, West Virginia. And I'd like to emphasize that Bruce was unable to attend the March of the Living. He wanted to, but circumstances prohibited it. And so now I'm going to ask Bruce, being home as he was, watching from afar, watching the news, seeing it out there in small town America, how did this whole experience, this whole endeavor, this whole worldwide ingathering impact you as an individual and as an astute observer of anti-Semitism and political process? Take the screen, Bruce.
Thank you, Edwin, and thanks for including me. It means a lot to me. So concerning your question, I'm really not sure of how many people in my area are even aware of the March of the Living. So that's something that maybe we can promote further. But I did have some comments I prepared. First, I want to thank God for those victims of the Holocaust who are still alive today. They've been blessed with a long life and the responsibility to continue telling their stories. Secondly, I'm thankful for those who have traveled from across the globe to be part of the March of the Living, and I wish I could be there with you, but I'm there with you in spirit. I also thank God for the men and women of America's greatest generation, of which my father, uncles, father-in-law were a part and served in the armed forces during World War II. They'd be proud to know that the March of the Living exists, supporting the Jewish community and Israel, and fighting hatred everywhere and against anyone. I've always thought that the horrors of the Holocaust were memories of the past not to be repeated. Unfortunately, October 7th reminded us that the same evil still exists in the world today. The Islamic extremists of today, as you well know, and you've written about extensively, represent an unbroken historical legacy of the hatred of the Nazis carried into current times. And I think that many people are not aware of that. Many people are not aware of the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem and that connection between the Middle East and Nazi Germany. I see the March of the Living as one way of combating that evil by reminding the world of the evil acts which should never be allowed to happen again. This sacred event also serves as an important commemoration so our enemies can't turn the events into myths and make the world eventually think that the stories are those of fiction. My grandmother immigrated to America as a teenager before World War I due to the pogroms in Eastern Europe. My grandfather, who died before I was born, also immigrated to America during the early 1900s. Other members of my family immigrated. They lived full lives in America despite the sad memories of parents, siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents, and friends in Europe who were victims of the Holocaust and who they would never see again on this earth. I dedicate my small participation to today's event to all of them, and particularly to my grandmother and family and all those who perished at the hands of evil. Two purposes of the March of the Living were readily apparent to me: to remember the past so as not to repeat it, and to serve as a memorial to those who were killed, those who fought, and those who survived. But after thinking about the march a lot over the last several weeks, I thought about what my personal loss is. It's a memorial to family that I never met, and family who were never born, who never had the opportunity to bring good, God-given gifts and love into the world. It's a memorial and a sad remembrance of a world that was forever changed. Current events tell us that we are not immune to a repeat of the events of the 1930s and 40s, and that we must all work towards our pledge of never again. God bless the March of the Living for helping to support that solemn pledge.
Oh, you're so correct. And I took notes on your important remarks, Bruce. Thank you very, very much for these observations. You are so correct that Hajj Amin al-Husseini, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, was a direct link. There was a vast international alliance between the Nazis and the Muslim and Arab world. They had 3 Waffen-SS divisions, and they embraced Hitlerism and Nazism. It was the basis for the Farhud pogrom on June 1st, 2nd, 1941. And all of this has survived, has been embraced by the leaders of the Palestinian Authority, by the leaders of Hamas. You are so correct. And as we know, General Eisenhower insisted that his men gather the evidence, gather the photographs, gather the documents, and make sure that everything was enshrined in documentation so it could never be denied. From your point of view, I'm going to use the word from small town America, where do you think we are in this process? Are we close? Are we on the way? Can it be stopped? What's your view on a second Holocaust?
Well, I'm very fortunate, as I've mentioned to you before, because of the part of the country that I live in. There are many people here who are God-fearing. Many people don't fall for all the propaganda that's in the news and the media today, especially the mainstream media. But we always have to be aware that it could be around the corner. You know, for instance, everything was fine in Israel on October 6th, and then October 7th happened. So we always have to keep our eyes open. I was speaking to our rabbi just a couple of weeks ago, and he mentioned about how safe we were here. And I said, well, we're safe until the day after something happens, and we find out maybe we weren't so safe. So we always have to keep our eyes open. I've had people who said that they would stand between me and harm. So it's.
I was on the Glenn Beck show, and I had people from small town America calling up and saying, we'll give you our basement and we'll take care of you. I understand exactly what you're saying, and I know the impact of what you're saying. You're doing God's work, and I want to thank you very, very much, Bruce, for your observations. They made a real difference to me and to history. I'm going to take one question from the many we have. It's from Harvey at our Tampa Watch Party. He says, we're losing too many fellow Jews, Reform, Reconstructionists, and conservative who are defending Hamas and attacking our administration's legal efforts against the elite universities. How do we reverse the tide? I think we need to continue the process of both mourning and warning. And we could do them simultaneously because they go hand in hand. But one day there will be a reckoning for how these Jewish liberals can work against the one man who is working day and night, who is using the power of the government, who is using the power of the purse, who is doing what he can to disassemble anti-Semitism in America. Never been done before, never been done in history. And I ask all of these Jewish people who are so thrilled with firebombing Teslas, who are so thrilled with convincing the world that Donald Trump is the devil, that he is the one who is actually doing something about anti-Semitism in America. It's real. We feel it. We see it. And they feel it. So thank you very much, Harvey, for your question. And now we're out of time. I want everybody to hold for my closing word of wisdom, just 2 minutes away. But first, I want to thank my very knowledgeable guests. Phyllis Greenberg Heideman, Merrill Eisenhower, Bruce Blank, Matt Lebovic, Faye Lincoln, and Ken Abramowitz. I also thank my talented international team, including Wes in the Bay Area, Martin in Michigan, Holly in Nashville, hi Holly, and Rebecca in the Philippines, as well as many others in numerous additional cities around the world. I'll see everyone back here in 2 weeks at 3 p.m. You want to be a friend of The Edwin Black Show? Go to theedwinblackshow.com/support. Keep me independent. You want to hear me in person? Watch my website for events. Consult my events page at edwinblack.com. Until then, head over to any Barnes & Noble in the U.S. or any Amazon, Walmart, iTunes Books, Google Books, Kobo, or Audible.com platform in 190 countries across this roiling, toiling, boiling planet, where you can find any of my 235 book editions, such as IBM and the Holocaust and Banking on Baghdad. You want an autographed copy? Hit edwinblack.com, click books. Get access alerts to participate live in future shows at theedwinblackshow.com. You'll see a much enhanced and exquisitely produced version of this episode in about a month, and prior episodes by subscribing to our YouTube channel at The Edwin Black Show. Click the notification button like tens of thousands of others. Follow me at Edwin Black Book on X as well as Facebook. And now for my closing word of wisdom. When you survive your enemies, you defeat them. I'm zooming out from Krakow, not far from Auschwitz in Poland. Bless all of you. Pray for all that is unfolding before our very eyes.